Biggest one in Lebanon killed lots of people. Huge explosions. 3 big explosions there. Also in China, big industrial explosion, and some kind of terrorist bombing or retaliation in Syria. So we're gonna get into all of those. Before we do, make sure you join us on the Round Table Discord server. You can just Google Round Table Discord. Also find us on our YouTube channel, Facebook, and all other social media. That being said, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining live audience. And I think I'm going to hand it to Mr. Ronan, maybe. Rather, Saigo. I apologize for maybe a quick introduction. How you doing, Saigo?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing?
Very well, thanks. Beautiful evening here in Canada.
Excellent. So yeah, I guess I'll just start off with what I think's going on in Lebanon. So Beirut, Lebanon, they had a series of explosions today. I'm sure a lot of listeners are aware. My take on it is that it was an intentional attack. I think Israel's involved. Why I think this? So August 1st, Israel, or the reports of Hezbollah threatening Israel with an imminent attack on Tel Aviv. And since then, after that was happening, there apparently have been around 17 surveillance aircraft, Israeli surveillance aircraft, being unmanned and manned, flying over Beirut, Lebanon for the past 36 hours, and this explosion happened. So apparently it was a series of 3 explosions. The first explosion started the fire. The second explosion resulted in a large cloud of red smoke, and then the third explosion resulting in the numerous deaths and injuries. Some speculating that it's a dirty bomb, some speculating that it was an airstrike, but there were no aircraft in the area during this time. Ever since that explosion, there's been Israeli aircraft above Tel Aviv swarming. They've been there about all day now, and I'm not sure what's going on in China, but so far the death toll is about 75, 76 people. More is expected, and it's around 3,200 people severely injured. Hospitals are maxed out. They're turning away non-life-threatening injuries. And this is complete chaos in Lebanon right now. The government came out and they said shortly after the bombing happened for all citizens in the area to leave the city immediately. And there's only one reason I can think of why that would occur. Some sort of chemical agent in the air or something to do with an airborne agent that's threatening to the lives of the Lebanese citizens. And with that, I'd like to pass it over to somebody else who has more information on these other bombings.
I think it was a very good introduction, Saigo. And just mind for anyone who's familiar, it's an open discussion podcast, so anyone can chime in at any time and just freely contribute your thoughts about these events. I know the Dr. Weir analyzed the Lebanon explosion, and he's some kind of scientist, and he believes that they indicated the signs being like conventional explosives, so not some kind of accidental industrial accident, but he thought it was like, heavy-duty military type explosives. That's pretty much the only take I have on it.
Yeah, so I guess since somebody else is talking, I can continue talking about Lebanon. So my sources are telling me that the warehouse that exploded was actually a warehouse that was holding Hezbollah armaments given to them by Iranian forces. And these armaments were going to be used in the attack that was threatened against Israel on Tel Aviv on August 1st. And being that Israel had all of its surveillance aircraft in the Lebanese area before this event happened, maybe Israel decided that they'd wipe out this arsenal of weapons. So, in other words, to neutralize the threat. Apparently, they decided there was some sort of attempted terrorist attack, and they responded by airstriking some areas in Syria, Hezbollah areas in Syria, something to do with a bomb being placed across the fence, the fence line in Jerusalem. I don't have all the data on it yet. It's fairly new information. Um, but as far as China goes, I don't know. It seems like there's this chemical plant that exploded. I don't really know what's going on with that. Does anybody else know what's going on in China?
So
Oh,
let me pull up the article here, and I'll read off what the article is talking about. So 6 people were killed, 4 others were injured in an explosion at a chemical. Oh no, actually it was near Wuhan. The blast occurred at 5:30. See, the city Xintao has 1.5 million residents, and it's 70 miles south on. Let's see. I mean, it's a chemical factory, and there's going to be a citywide inspection to eliminate potential hazards. The cause of the explosion is still under investigation. And unironically enough, just to make this a note, industrial accidents are really common in China. China has a pretty large history of chemical factory explosions in general. And it just seems to be a pattern because China, for whatever, the escalators eat people and the factories blow up when they're really not supposed to.
That could be something along the lines of their OHS or their working conditions, which they, like in Australia, where it happens in the industry, it happens, it's rare, but I guess in China, if like they don't have so strong a union or anything like that, I could see why it'd be common. So what other 3 explosions? We have one in Wuhan, one in Lebanon. Where's the other one?
And then some military strikes in Syria, I guess, or terrorist strikes.
Okay.
No, Israel foiled the attacks. They got in. They were almost up to the wall. I guess they were going to plan on blasting the wall, but Israel got them, and then they retaliated.
That would make sense for that situation in Lebanon, because historically they've been doing that for a long time. With the China one, I think that'd be independent, hey? That might be just something coincidental.
The China one doesn't surprise me at all. And the whole retaliation strike by Israel and Syria against Hezbollah, it goes and reinforces my theory that Israel is completely involved in this attack in Lebanon. That's the only thing I can think of. What I'm most concerned about at this point is, why would a government ask all of its citizens to leave the city immediately? Well, what could be the reason?
For further explosions or evacuation? So I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Well, they're trying to push this rhetoric that it was a fireworks explosion, like a factory or warehouse holding fireworks, and I don't buy that at all. You're not going to need to evacuate an entire city for fireworks explosion. Like, let's keep in mind that the Hiroshima anniversary is today. It's also the birthday of Barack Obama, and the yield of the Hiroshima bomb during World War II was 15 kilotons. This didn't seem like it was anywhere near the yieldage used in Japan and Hiroshima during World War II, but I have to argue that it was very large in size. Like, I'm gonna say at least 5 kilotons, and I don't know if that can be.
Conspiracy theorist?
Absolutely.
Well, so here's what I think. So there's colors that are involved, right? There's no possible way the color combination could be fireworks, because it was a brown kind of soupy color. So there's my sources indicate it's a type of hydride that's used for chemical weapons, or sorry, not chemical, rather nitrates, and the hue, because that's the hue of the color explosion. Hang on.
So the first explosion
yield?
started the fire. The second explosion resulted in a large plume of red and brown smoke, and then the third explosion was the large one that injured a lot of people.
So wasn't I thought there was talk about this being a munitions department or a place where they stored ammo and artillery and stuff, and not like where did that firework thing come from?
That was
That
the
would make
initial
sense in a cover
report.
story. Like what you're
Yeah,
saying there, what your boys have been just talking about, like because one dude, what you said, evacuating a city. If there's fireworks, yeah, they're erratic and random, right? And if it's munitions, it's a similar thing. So they both fit in the same boat, right? And so if, a munitions factory or something like that, or something volatile caught on fire, or, is exploding, then I guess that would be a reason to evacuate a city. Also because, in this global age, people don't want to have their country look like it's not running efficiently or it's whatever. So they might have done it for, I guess, media censure as well. Grab the people out so we can just kind of write the story of what we want. And yeah.
So on top of this, for as to why they would evacuate the city, it doesn't have to be chemical or like airborne pathogen related. It could just a simple explanation. Not that I'm casting doubt on that, but a simple explanation could be is they're afraid that there's going to be another explosion that pops off somewhere else, and they're evacuating the city so they don't have because that an explosion of that size, like kind of looking at this footage, can easily kill 10,000 people if you just hit it in like a dense enough spot.
sure, but the fire was essentially controlled at the time where they evacuated the city. They were actually analyzing the rubble, and then the evacuation notice was put into effect. Why wasn't the evacuation notice put into effect when the fire started? There were 3 explosions. They had 2 explosions before the third one. Everybody just stood around and filmed it. I just don't understand why they'd wait a couple hours after the explosion, after they put the fire out, to say, hey, we actually need all you guys to evacuate. It seems to me like this could be some type of dirty bomb, and maybe there's some form of nuclear fallout or some sort of chemical agent that was released that's detrimental to human health.
Yeah,
So we got two little stories right now. No, just quickly, so there could be that because you got these explosions are happening and people, instead of running, a lot of them are taking out their cameras and filming. Yeah, which means that they might be in unsafe places. So that could be one reason, and also the other reasons we've highlighted I've seen is if there's some sort of something in the air that could hurt us, or the smoke or something from these chemical fires could be toxic to us. So possibly that. Media is another reason.
I did hear some discussion going through a couple of my threads about this today, was that there was actually not so much as a dirty nuke, but a suitcase nuke, which I guess in concept would be the same thing. It was just like a suitcase-sized nuclear device. And I do believe the most likely scenario here is that this was a munitions department. As far as who owned the ammunition.
FYI, the yield on a suitcase nuke is 0.2 kilotons to 2 kilotons. So that's your size of explosion you would see out of a nuclear bomb that fits in a suitcase.
So with that, and I do, I'll try to look at some math here in a minute, but I think with the size of the explosion, because I was reading that and I was comparing that at 0.2 to 0.5 kiloton explosion, and it was comparing it to a 200 kiloton explosion. So I think the most likely case here is that this is a munitions department, and which was under Muslim control. And I mean, whether people realize it or not, the Jewish Israel and the Muslim world are at war. They've been at war for 1400 years, and it's pretty interesting to see how opposed to Israel Islamic doctrine is, because in Islamic doctrine you actually have end time prophecies about how the Muslims get to kill all the Jews, and the Jews will hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees will go, "Oh, servant of Allah, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come and kill him." except for the Gardak tree, which is a nightshade tree. And the reason why the Islamic prophecy says this tree won't call out to the Muslims, there's a Jew hiding behind me, please come kill him, is it is a Jewish tree. So what Israel does is they actually plant that tree all around its borders. And there are other parts in Islamic doctrine where they actually literally want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, wipe the Jewish people or the Israeli people off the face of the earth, and even wipe them from the memory of the people. Which, interestingly enough, is the intentions of the people who do the Gog and Magog invasion in Ezekiel 38 and 39, because they set a coalition of nations: Turkey, Syria, or what is today Syria, what is today Iran, which is Persia, Iraq, Egypt, Libya, or I think Lebanon too is included in there, and what is today Sudan, but was called back then Ethiopia, make a coalition to march on the land of Israel, and they try to wipe them. They try to not just wipe them from the face of the earth, but the memory of the people as well. So it's pretty interesting to see. I guess the Muslim nations start to form a coalition against this purpose and have this in their doctrine specifically, and also to have their prophecies, the Islamic prophecies laid out in a biblical prophecy in Ezekiel, literally 1,000 years before Muhammad was born, and an additional 200 to 400 years before these prophecies really started to pop out.
So does anyone here think any of these explosions bring the world potentially closer to war or heat up, existing conflicts or anything like that?
It just seems that it's like counter attacking, and like what old mates just mentioned, it's true, because like in the last few wars we had, on the last wars against Israel, I think Egypt was attacking them. The Islamic Brotherhood got together, and even Pakistan was involved. Like Sudan, nations like that. So it's like, you're right. It's not a coalition. I think they've already identified and named themselves as the Islamic Brotherhood. I'd be interested to see if they get together and talk after this Lebanese explosion, because that might tell us that, hey, because these guys are getting together and having a conversation about it, it might not just be accidents in the country, but it might be like Israel affecting, their kind of prophecy. So that's why they've gotten together to have a little meeting about it. I'd like to see what comes in, comes after these attacks, like in a few days, news-wise.
Yeah, all of this information is really fresh, and the details, I think, need a few more days to really pan out, and a lot of the sources we look at, like, they just need time to develop this.
And at the same time, there's going to be people who are like, trying to liken it to, I guess, a fireworks factory or something or other, just to protect, I guess, interests or national interests, I suppose. Because I mean, like for Lebanon, like you got it's a Christian nation as well as there's Muslims there as well. And I think for the most part, the Christian side really doesn't want to antagonize or be involved in any of this, like wars within religions. So, boys, what are your thoughts?
If I have any more take on the explosions, if anyone else does, please bring them forward now. If not,
I think it's a good distraction from the news cycle as well. I think things about COVID, it'll distraction, as well as distract from Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell stuff going on, which should be at the top of the food chain, considering one of our presidents could possibly be a kid fucker. But I think I think it could be used as partially distraction too. I don't know. There's false flags all the time throughout history, all the way to from Gulf of Tonkin, USS Liberty, fucking even when someone say the killing of what's his name for World War One. Usually start on something goofy like an event like this. So I guess we'll have to see what unfolds.
So that does raise a good point. Like this, I wonder what's going on what they're trying to pass in the Senate or the House of Representatives right now. Because I don't remember I'm sure when I start talking about someone will remember the specific example, but there was some huge like news story that was completely useless and it got covered on every single news network, even the ones that are opposed like CNN and Fox News. They're both running the story and then I think it was something about what's that term for internet?
I know
It
what
was
you're
something to
talking
do with
about.
net
You're talking about
control.
free net neutrality.
Yes, that. So they basically played a whole bunch of distraction, and the House of Representatives and Senate passed net neutrality legislation.
Yeah, that was like a big deal online and stuff like that. Yeah, so and I'm not saying this is like a plot necessarily, but at the same time, they could use it as a time frame to do something.
Yeah, and this does fit the bill because these things are gonna achieve international press coverage for quite a few days, and over quite a few days, like literally governments can just do whatever they want, and it will be swept under the rug that is these worldwide explosions. And I didn't know that was it was the anniversary of Hiroshima. Just the fact that explosions took place all over the world.
I thought it was August 8th though. I thought the first bomb dropped on the 6th or the 8th.
Can we get a fact check on that real quick?
Yeah, because my grandfather was in Guam when it went off, and he has letters, and I was checking them, and I swear it was the 6th, something like that.
It might just
see
be
that
coincidence with that.
It was the anniversary.
Nevertheless, what you guys mentioned, if like, for example, if Hezbollah or agents that are in opposition to Israel, or just, people in Israel living their free lives, right? If there's opposition like that, I'm sure like we had Mossad back in the days, right? So I'm sure there's, Israel's got some top agents out there to kind of like, find these things out, fuck them up before they happen. And, like, if that means that, these weapons can't be divided to the enemies of Israel, then it's all right for them, I guess, and like, if that was the case, then the people who, like, for example, Lebanon, if they know, the Lebanese government know that there have been criminals in their nation doing this thing, well, the onus is on them now, So, like, these Israel troops may have come in, planted a bomb in this munition factory, bam. There you go, see you later, no more.
So I just checked, it was actually the 6th and the 9th of August. The time frame still remains pretty interesting though.
Because there's two bombs dropped in, like Fat Boy and Little Man. Or...
Yeah, Hiroshima was the 6th, then Nagasaki was on the 9th.
So I was right then, it was the 6th.
Yeah.
Because there's two bombs, and it's like was it the same plane, Ebola Gay, or was it two different planes?
I'm not sure.
Right,
yeah,
that would have been madness.
I remember doing some research, so that's why I was thrown off by the date. Someone saying Hiroshima, I was like, no, that doesn't sound right.
So it might just be independent to that. The Chinese explosion seems like just like... I wouldn't say it's covering up information. It sounds more like it's just something that happened, that's normal, but...
Well,
what do you guys think of that one?
I actually lean more on the side, not I wouldn't call it fact yet, but a speculation that it is to cover up information. There's also like, and this might end up derailing, but on a quick side note on this, there's also speculation that a lot of the flooding that's happening in China is being taken advantage of to destroy evidence of what really happened with Corona in certain regions of China. So like it looks like it's separate from these two events, but just I guess as far as the shadiness of China goes, it is in the character of the Chinese Communist Party to blow up a factory in order to cover something up.
Yeah, I can dig with that. It's interesting though. Like I know that side note on COVID. Like, we remember that COVID came from that place. There was someone that was first initially involved with it who became sick, and then we've not had any information since then. Any kind of like, I don't know, investigations in China have not I don't know. I've not really seen any kind of answers. And then the next thing you know, we've got like, explosions and stuff like that. I think NSA, you're right on a few points as well. Like, yeah, dude, the beginning of last year or something, we were onto something. Epstein, we were killing into Hollywood. Like all these memes are becoming realities. And then all of a sudden, we've got COVID, which kind of shuts down everything. And it's kind of one of these viruses that I'm not going to deny it or anything, but I can't really always see, the impact it has. The numbers is one thing on TV, but I can't see it always. So we've had COVID, and then now we've got these explosions and that. I'm just wondering when we're going to tie up with that Epstein stuff, because that seemed pretty cool. That
Well,
actually.
they still got the alien shit in their pocket too. They have another couple weeks of distraction if they really wanted to. I mean, what they don't really want to, they don't want it fully out there that the world's elite is blackmailed, and they're blackmailed with crazy sex crimes and shit. There's tons of people that talk about this, ex-CIA and all this. There's a guy named Robert Steele who does like international, like he's on the Commission for International Human Trafficking, stuff like that. And these people would use underage girls to fucking get blackmail on people, and that's been going on for like 50 years. And every government does it, and every government does it a lot. It's like a global thing. And it's a huge cover-up to have that covered up. I know I'm
totally
kind of tangenting
different
it, but
topic. So if we're done with the explosions topic, we should probably close the podcast, and then we can just jump up to Round Table 1 and continue talking about anything we want. Does anyone else want to say anything else on this topic before we close it up?
The point is, since you so rudely interrupted me, is that there is a big reason for a lot of false flags to be happening after another to distract from the news cycle, because there's a lot of major things that are starting to unfold that if the public's opinion were to weigh in on what's happening at FBI and things like that, might affect things.
I think that's a nice way to tie it back in, yeah. So it could be like you're putting this explosion as, it could be one of these things that's just there to distract us. The fact that the news has picked up explosions all over the world, it does kind of bring people to attention, yeah. But we can see through like this little discussion that some of these explosions might have just been coincidental or unique to the country that they happened in. For example, China. And there could be issues with it, cover-ups, etc., like false flags that you guys mentioned, and also in Lebanon, we do have history of like people using explosions to try and genocide other people. So the stories we've covered today.
I'm sorry, dude. There's a concept of mass mind control too, since we're all going through a global trauma with COVID. That gives the opportunity for the feared that once man is afraid, his higher learning and higher functions are kind of turned off when they're afraid and anxious. So they're able to then input commands, as it were, through the media that will then, be a guiding force in the news cycle way more than they could before COVID. So this is like now major thing, because there's 50 million unemployed people going, oh my god.
Yeah, I get you. I'm done with my thoughts and speculations at the moment. I'd love to see some more news come out, and you boys keep doing your research so we can come back and bring some, good thoughts to the table.
On maybe a final note to all of this, Travis raises a very good point. The way mind control can work is through constant trauma. So we, more than ever, we have more people paying attention to world events due to the fact that they're unemployed and they all of a sudden have all this new time on their hands. So with all this new time, like what the news cycle will do is just, it will constantly inflict new trauma. And like, just on the same way, like it's traumatic to learn that there's a cabal of people who abuse children in satanic rituals, like with Epstein and Maxwell, and the people speculated to be in that. And then you have this thing and then that thing. So it's just layers and layers upon trauma that just break down, demoralize, and give the ability to control the masses by fear.
Awesome. I reckon
It's old mystery school teachings. It's ancient Egypt empire building tactics, order out of chaos.
Well, maybe that's as good a place as any to wrap up the explosions podcast. But thank you. Does anyone want to make any final statements or bring up anything else before we close?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the bases today. We just have to revitalize ourselves and bring it back with some new knowledge next time.
Yeah, well, and we'll have new topics tomorrow and every day. We'll be resuming daily 8 p.m. podcast, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. Not sure what the topic we'll do tomorrow, possibly Antarctica. Lots to talk about there. But thank you all so much for participating. We are the Round Table Discord server. You can find us by Googling Round Table Discord. We're on Facebook. You can follow us on YouTube. Check out our podcast there. And on BitChute, etc. Now let's all jump up, please, to Roundtable 1. We can just continue talking about anything we want. Thanks very much. Good night.